So now we are on streaming. That is good. Ursula, you will be maybe upset, but I don't find the feature again to make the video run. I hope it will work, but I don't see that here. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this April 21 Committee of Expertise. My name is Christian Hay, and I hope we will spend a very interesting time together during this 90 minutes. Before starting, it's always good to remember the audience about a few rules regarding these meetings. For those who are familiar with Committee of Expertise, that will be only a repetition. Everybody is on mute. So that means that the participants cannot speak. You can ask questions, receive a response. For that, you have a Q&A facility on your screen where you can type your response. If you see the question, you can ask your question, sorry. And if you see a question which you find appropriate, you can also approve that with a thumb up on this Q&A facility. So you can ask your question at any time. So that means also during the presentations. The open questions at the end will be answered in the assumption that some question would not be answered because lack of time. We will do our best to answer you directly by email. If you speak, that can happen. Of course, if you speak, be concise. And that gives the possibility to the others also to interact with our speaker team and the panelists. To activate the Q&A facility, you see here on the bottom of this screen, that's the French version, but you see that's a Q&A. You click on that, and then you can ask your question and possibly see a written response. We ask you not to use the chat box because that is distracting the speaker. And actually, it is not very helpful to have two platforms to ask questions. This session is password protected. That means that each of you had to register and receive the personal link. It will be recorded. It is currently broadcasted on YouTube already now. At the end of the meeting, or towards the end of the meeting, you will see a questionnaire popping up, which allows us to understand if you were happy about what you heard or where you had the information from to join this webinar. Thank you for filling that. That's very short done, and it is very helpful for us to have this information. Today we have 4 speakers. In the sequence, it will be Leonora Grandia. Leonora Grandia works at the Royal Association of Pharmacists in the Netherlands. But I know Leonora because she is also a very active member of ISO TC 215 Working Group 6. Actually, she's also the person who was project lead. She was not alone, but project lead for the ISO standard on medicinal product dictionary. The second speaker, actually, I don't know if he's already online. I hope he is. Doesn't look like. I hope he will join. Christian Lieberg, he is a pharmacist and he works in Oslo in the WHO Competence Center addressing drug statistic methodologies. The third speaker is François-Xavier Léry. That's an old friend of mine already. He works at the Council of Europe in EDQM, and I met him a couple of times. He is also a pharmacist and head of the pharmaceutical and consumer care section at EDQM. The fourth speaker is a lady, so we are very balanced. Ursula Chorn, she is also a very active member of ISO TC 215 Working Group 6 and very engaged also in the medicinal product dictionary business. She has her experience, and we thought that having the Dutch and the German, not because of the countries, but because of the expertise, the Dutch and the German example at the beginning and at the end of the presentations today will help to understand how the medicinal product dictionary can be different and still have the same, I would say, source. Then we have a panelist, Markus Pongratz from Austria. He is chairing a committee addressing, among else, I suppose, Melclass. So he will be at home with François-Xavier Léry his presentation. And we have a second person from EDQM. She's not on the screen here. Silvia Ravera. She works at EDQM as well, and she will also be able possibly to respond some questions we might have. Well,
Christian, sorry for interrupt you, but I have seen that Christian Lee is as participant and not as panelist in the meeting.
Okay, so I'm going to upgrade this gentleman. Where is he? Yeah. Up.
I can do it as well, Christian. Just go forward.
Thank you. Yeah. Very good remark. Good. Let me continue by just summarizing the topics we are going to address. In that sequence, the ISO 7 technical specification 19256 and the Z-index in the Netherlands. You will become familiar with the ISO number, I suppose. Then we speak about ATC governance and relation with other standards. That will be, as I said before, presented by Christian Berg from Oslo. Melclass, governance, mission and vision. And to close the presentations, the German IDMP medicinal product dictionary. With that, I want to give the floor to Leonora, who comes. Oh yes, I forgot to say we speak about the question at the end and not. There will be no answer during the speech, but at the very end. Leonora and the colorful slides.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christian. As Christian already said, my presentation will have two parts. Firstly, about the structure of a medicinal product dictionary. And secondly, how does that work in the Dutch version of the medicinal product dictionary. The medicinal product dictionary, it is a technical specification published by ISO under Working Group 6, and it was developed after the development of the IDMP standards. Next slide, please. And you can maybe ask, why is a medicinal product dictionary necessary when you have the IDMP standards where the drugs are characterized? And as you have a look to this definition of medicinal product dictionary that is taken from the technical specification, you see that the first part where it speaks about a consistent representation of medication concepts, which is a set of identifiers at various level of details with meaningful relationships between the concepts, that it looks like or resembles the IDMP. But the main difference is in the use case. IDMP is developed for the use case of to support the exchange of data between manufacturers and the NCAs. The medicinal product dictionary has its focus on healthcare. It is developed to support the use case of healthcare. And therefore, in that way, it will function as a bridge between the IDMP and the application of IDMP in the field of the healthcare. Can I have the next slide, please? So what are actually the use cases of a medicinal product dictionary? First of all, it supports the prescribing of drugs. When you prescribe a drug, that you can choose it from a database, on a generic level or on the level of the brand, but at least that you can choose your drugs from a database. It is also used in the pharmacy to choose the drug to dispense based on the prescription of the drug of the prescriber. So of course there also will be data exchange between the prescriber and the pharmacy, so that the pharmacy knows what was which drug was prescribed. Beside that, or in addition to that, a use case is also that the pharmacy can order the drugs from the wholesaler, that you can order the drug from the wholesaler, and that the wholesaler can order the drug from the manufacturer. So the supply chain is also supported by the medicinal product dictionary. And in addition to that, also the reimbursement. Is the drug reimbursed for which amount? You would like to find it in your medicinal product dictionary, and the health insurer should find these data also in this database. So all the processes in healthcare that have to do with medication should be supported by a medicinal product dictionary. Can I have the next slide, please? So which type of data are important to include in a medicinal product dictionary? In the technical specification, 4 levels or 5 levels are described. Namely, the level of substances, the level of the pharmaceutical product, the level of a prescription to support the prescription of drugs. And it is here in italic because it is not a level that is also in the IDMP. And a level of the medicinal product and of the packaged medicinal product. Next slide, please. And here I will explain a little bit more in detail what type of data will be in these levels, although not all the details of the technical specification, because then I will run out of time. So on the level of the substances, of course, you will have data like of attributes like the molecular weight, the chemical abstract number, surface number. Also the ingredient rule, whether it is an active ingredient or an excipient. But you don't need all the details that are in IDMP, in the standard for the substances. So the type of impurities and things like that are not necessary for the usage in healthcare. So that can be left out in a drug database for healthcare. Next slide, please. The second level is the level of the pharmaceutical product, which consists of the substances, the dose form, the strength, The PHP has the concentration strength and presentation strength. And all these data are also important in an MPD for healthcare. Indeed, it is very important because this level is also the basis to prescribe the drugs on a generic level. And then the things become important, like the level of granularity of the dose form. Is the PHP and the PHP in your medicinal product dictionary, does it include the details like tablet, coated tablet, film coated tablet with 3 different IDs, and the doctor has to choose between these 3? Or is it more useful for this use case to have only one of the dose form only on the level of the tablet, and film coated and coated tablet is a level of detail that you don't want to have it here in your medicinal product dictionary. We think from our experience that the details of a coated and a film coated tablet are not very useful in your medicinal product dictionary when you would like to support the use case of prescribing drugs, for example. Yeah, next slide, please. Another level in the medicinal product dictionary is what I said already, a level to support the prescription of drugs, which can be a fixed level within the hierarchy that I mentioned before, and then it relies on the PHP with some other details to make a more clear distinction that you need to prescribe the right drug. Or you can use the several elements from your several characteristics from the drugs to prescribe the drug on the level that you would like to have. For example, especially infusions, you don't want to have all the details of the PHP, but you would like to prescribe it as ciprofloxacin, 400 milligrams intravenously, and the infusion rate, for example. So in the MPD, it is described which that you can have the prescription level in these 2 ways, and how to accommodate both of them in order to support your use case of prescribing the drugs in a proper way. Next slide, please. And then we have the level of the medicinal product, which resembles very much the MPID of the IDMP. It's the same type of data. I mentioned here in this slide a few of them, but not all, of course. But here also there are a lot of details in IDMP that you don't need for the use case of healthcare. For example, the versioning of the attached document, whether it has an orphan designation. There are data about the master file in the IDMP. All these type of data are not necessary for healthcare, so you can leave it out when you build a medicinal product dictionary. But on the other hand, you would like to include other information that is not in IDMP, for example, a non-approved route of administration. Of course, you would like to have the approved ones, but maybe in your national guidelines, it is described that you can also use another route of administration. And these type of things you also would like to have in your medicinal product dictionary. Next slide, please. And of course, also an important level in a medicinal product dictionary is the packaged medicinal product, where you will find the information about the package size, but also the reimbursement data, or the registration number, the approval number from the EMA or your local NCA. and other type of things that are, of course, important for mostly for dispensing the drug and also to do track and trace on the products that you have dispensed. Next one, please. So in summary, what do you have in your medicinal product dictionary? On the left-hand side, you see the triangle with the different levels in blue and italic, the things that you will have in addition to the IDMP, so a level for prescribing the drugs, and some other additional information on the level of the medicinal product or the packaged medicinal product. For example, also the type of products, not only the approved one, but also the non-approved one that are that can be prescribed and dispensed in your country. And on the right-hand side, in red with the cross, the examples of the details that can be left out in your medicinal product dictionary because they are not relevant for healthcare. Next one, please. And then here you see how it can support, or what are the levels that support the use cases in healthcare, the prescribing, the medication records, dispensing, ordering. Most of the support of the use cases in healthcare are on the lower levels of the hierarchy. But all the levels of the hierarchy can be used to support the use case of the decision support. Because when you would like to have alerts, the decision support is alerts during prescribing or dispensing the drug, this can be linked to each of these levels to make this linkage in an efficient and in a way that is also good from the perspective of the quality. When you have an alert that is applicable to the substance as such, you don't want to have to make a link to all the medicinal products separately, but to do it just on the level of the substance, and then you will have the alert on every product. Next one, please. Now, how does it work in the Dutch example of a medicinal product dictionary? Here you see an example of a substance, the liraglutide. Liraglutide, don't know exactly the English pronunciation, but you can read it here. You see it is a substance name in the upper. You see it also in the second row. Here you can't see that the second row accommodates the salts and so on, but because liraglutide doesn't have salts. But in the Dutch database, here we have the difference between the active moiety and the belonging salt. And you see the indication whether it is an active ingredient or excipient. That is under the blue box. It says werkzame stof, but that means it is active ingredient. It has the chemical abstract surface number. It has a molecular formula. It has the molecular weight, and it has the preferred unit, which is milligram for this substance. And some other details, but this gives a little bit a glance how this is included in our database. And these are all structured fields. Next one, please. This is an example of the PHP-like level in our database, and I apologize for the difference in the layout, but I took it from different databases. You see in the upper half the name, the liraglutide injection solution, a solution for injection 6 milligram per ml, and it has the active moiety as such. You see it in the lower row, the liraglutide with the Dutch code, the 88285, the code for the liraglutide. It has the amount, the 6, and the unit, milligrams. In the middle, you see the dose form, pharmaceutical dose form, the solution for injection, and the unit for the, this PHP, the milliliter, because it is a solution and this has the unit milliliter. And as an attribute, you see the ATC. This is on the level of the PHP in our database, and the amount of DDD. Next one, please. On the level of the prescription products, you see it is nearly the same as the PHP level. It is also the liraglutide injection solution, 6 milligram per ml. But here, in addition to that, it also says that the container type, you see voorgevulde pen, that means pre-filled syringe. And the amount, namely 3 milliliters. You see it in the upper level. There you see it in the name, but this is also structured information that says it is a field for pre-filled syringe, a field for the 3, and also a field for the milliliter, so that you can find all the details in a structured data. Next one. This is an example of of the medicinal product. Only a few details, because it is just the composition, the active ingredient and the excipients. But there are, of course, also lots of other information about the other units and things like that. So you see here the liraglutide with the 6 milligram. It is the W from that indicates that it is the active ingredient, with all the different excipients, and for the excipients for which it is important to know the amount, we also have the strength in the excipients. Next one, please. And this is an example of the packaged medicinal product. The same product, the Saxenda, the liraglutide, and here you see, for example, the G-tin in the left table. The G-tin, yes, there. The G-tin, the price, few rows there under, 214 euros. The value added tax, 9%. And at the right-hand side, the registration number from the EMA, the date of approval, the marketing authorization holder, and there are other details that I didn't show here. But then you can see that all the fields that are described in IDMP, also in the standard for the medicinal product dictionary, are here in our database in a structured way. And this shows how the structure is used for the linkage to the decision support. This shows the content of a group. For the linkage to decision support, we make groups of drugs, sometimes a group with one drug, sometimes groups with more than one drug or active ingredient, I can say better. Here you see we have a group of liraglutide in which the liraglutide is linked on the level of the substance. You see here the same code, 88281. It was the name of the substance. So this means this group contains the drug on the level of the substance. And on the right-hand side, you see that this group is linked to decision support belonging to pregnancy and lactation, and also one about renal impairment, that is the nierfunctie. And in this way, we make the linkage between the drugs based on the groups to the several decision support items. Next one, please. I think this was the last one. Yeah. So, yeah, this was my presentation. And as Christian said, the questions will be gathered for the end of the session. And I hand it over to Christian.
Thank you very much, Leonora. Yes, we have two questions, but I think they will receive an answer in the last presentation, and then it will be worth to comment on them. Thank you, Leonora. The next speaker is my colleague Christian from Oslo. I welcome him because it's the first time he is speaking in a committee of expertise, but I'm sure he will interest a lot of us. Christian, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I have demuted and turned on my video, so I should be here somewhere.
You are perfectly, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this possibility to say something about the ATC classification in this context, because this is not so much about prescribing, it's rather about monitoring and research in drug utilization. I am from the WHO Collaborating Center for Drug Statistics and Methodology in Oslo. We are a collaborating center to deal with ATC DDD methodology. Next slide, please. This is a very short presentation. If you want a course in ATC DDD, we will have one in June virtual. But I don't know exactly where you are in this picture, so I have to say some basic things. I will tell you about the purpose of the ATC DDD system, the structure of the ATC code and how an ATC code is established, some general, very general principles for ATC classification, some examples of the use of the ATC DDD system, and how we develop and maintain the ATC DDD system. Next slide, please. The visions and ambitions for the ATC DDD system is to be an international language for drug utilization, monitoring, and research. And by international, we in fact mean global, because we have in our center a lot of experiences in use of this in also low and middle income countries, that it works very well for the monitoring of drug use. It is a tool for drug utilization and monitoring in order to improve quality of drug use, which is of course the ambition of all systems. It is, we hope it will work as a hierarchic standard for drug classes, because we need a standard, we need to have an agreed standard on different drug classes to be able to aggregate data on drug consumption. And we collaborate with the INN and use the INNs as basis for the 5th level naming when it's possible. Next slide, please. This may be something that all of you know, but I'll just mention it and go very quickly over it. It is anatomical, therapeutic, chemical classification. It is a hierarchic classification system for medical products with 5 levels. The drugs are classified according to anatomy, very high level, therapy, indication, area of use, pharmacology, and chemical structures. As pharmacists these days tend to be not so good in chemistry and much better in pharmacology, new levels created the latest years have been mainly pharmacological levels. Next slide, please. I must mention that in addition to the code, we have a DDD, which is a technical unit for measuring the consumption of drugs. The definition is the assumed average maintenance dose per day for a drug used for its main indication in adults. This is linked to the ATC code and the route of administration. And the advantages with this unit is that you can calculate the consumption independent of currency price, pack size, and strength if you use this unit together with the ATC code. Next slide, please. This is this overview that hopefully all of you, if not all, most of you at least know about the main groups of the ATC system. And we try to have a letter that gives at least some kind of association. You see, it's not anatomical, all this. Anti-infectives for systemic use is not very anatomical. But this is how this system is created, just to remind you on that. And the next slide, please. Yes. First level This example here is for metformin. Metformin is a drug belonging to alimentary tract and metabolism. Next. It is a drug used for diabetes. That is the second level. It is a blood glucose lowering drug. That's the third level. It's a pharmacological level in this case. Next. It's a biguanide, fourth level. And then we come to the substance, which is the fifth level. So this is the basic way we create these codes, but it will depend on the development of the pharmaceutical or the ATC group, how detailed this is. Next slide, please. Our center was established in 1982 as a European center. We have been a global ATC, global collaborating center since 1996. And we are situated at the Norwegian Institute of Public Health, Division of Health Data and Digitalization, Department of Drug Statistics. That means that we also handle the Norwegian drug statistics, the prescription statistics, and wholesale statistics. So we really use the methodology in our everyday work. Next slide, please. Our terms of references, the center's terms of reference is to classify drugs in the ATC DDD system, to establish DDDs, and to review and revise as necessary the classification and the DDDs. And we also want to stimulate and influence the practical use of the ATC DDD system. This is something we do really globally from our center. Next slide, please. I think back one, please. Yes, please. To do our work, we have the big advantage to collaborate with the international working group that has representatives from all the different regions, WHO regions in the world. At the moment, we have representatives in this group from 11 countries. And in addition, we have observers from IFPMA, the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, and also from UMC, Uppsala Monitoring Center, that you know. We have 2 annual meetings discussing our items. Of course, this has to have had to be virtual meetings the last 3 meetings, but that works as well. And in this group, we discuss and approve new ATC code and DDDs and alterations of the system. Next slide, please. Yes. A new code is established according to an application from mainly the market authorization holders, but also from medicinal agencies and researchers. What happens when we get an application that we review it at our center, and all the codes are discussed and decided by the WHO working group. They are first published as temporary and open for comments and objections, and then they are implemented in the annual updates of the ATC DDD index. That when we have bigger alterations of the system, for instance, new 3rd and 4th levels, we have to consult experts, and we have hearings or public consultation regarding this. Yesterday, we published a new public consultation regarding a planned reclassification of the monoclonal antibodies in LO1F, monoclonal antibodies used for cancer treatment. And last year, as some of you may remember, we had a major makeup, so to say, for the protein kinase inhibitors. Next slide, please. Alterations in the ATC system, it's something that is not easy to handle in all these systems that are used throughout the world. We keep the number of changes as low as possible. We don't want to change too much because a stable system is very important when we create drug statistics and do studies of drug utilization. So we try to keep the changes at a minimum. Next slide, please. But we have to do some alterations. For instance, when new chemical entities or drug groups are introduced, when there is a shift of therapy that we can recognize, when there are new knowledge about mechanism of action, and sometimes we have to split larger and complex groups. As the example I mentioned, the monoclonal antibodies for cancer use, which was a huge group, and there was a need to do something with it. I will just use an example for an alteration recently performed. Next slide, please. As you all know, the new anti-migraine preparations arrived at the scene in 1919, 1918, something like that. And these products were classified in the ATC system in another group. It's an X group, which are other drugs that doesn't fit into the system. But we realized that they were coming more and more here. And then in 2020, the working group decided to create a new ATC fourth level for calcitonin gene-related peptide antagonists. And we had then to alter 2 codes and assign new codes. You know, IMOVIG and Emgality, how it is pronounced. And as you also probably know, there are coming more in this group. So I think it was a good choice, because in pharmacoepidemiology, and it is important to follow this group and to look into the group at the fourth level to see how it develops, that these are not only drugs classified in together with other substances. Next slide, please. And some uses of the ATC system. A very prominent example, I think, is the reporting of use of antibacterials to ECDC, because when all European countries and also countries in other, all over the world are supposed to report on the consumption, to be able to monitor resistance of antimicrobials, we need a clear definition on exactly what to report. And in this reporting, we only need to give a ATC group at the second level. Then all the levels below this will automatically be included. And if we assign a new ATC fifth level for a systemic antibacterial, it will automatically be included in this, this reporting. And here also, to measure the consumption, we need the DDD. And this works very well for monitoring the use of antimicrobials in Europe. The ATC code is, as you know, also used in pharmacovigilance. In UMC is using this in their WHO drug index. And I think it's a good tool to be able to see, to have some drug classes that works. Next slide, please. Yes, the limitations of ATC codes is that they are not an IDMP. Much higher granularity, as was demonstrated in the last lecture, is needed for this purpose. We also have had some, so to say, mails and people writing to us regarding it's too many alterations. We try to be conservative here, but they are sometimes needed when we have new knowledge about the pharmacology, and there are just a big bag of substances which can be put into logical groups. Another thing that has been mentioned is combination products that we used before to name the combination products with one name and then combinations. But the last years we have tried to make new fifth levels that identifies all active ingredients. Next slide, please. We think that the advantages of the ATC DDD system, that is that it represents a recommended standard for substances in the hierarchic drug classification, and it allows for aggregation in drug statistics and monitoring of drug consumption. It is also very important that this hierarchy is globally used and accepted, and that it's prepared in cooperation with experts. And we hope that it's a good thing that it's developed and maintained by our center and WHO working group. Next slide, please. Next. It's one more slide, I think. Yes, this is our web page. And this is from, well, it is in fact updated yesterday with this public consultation regarding the monoclonal antibodies. And here we also publish all new codes, alterations, and hopefully now we will improve the way we do this. We will publish an Excel sheet where you can find all the alterations, and it should be easier to implement it in your systems. Yes, that's what I had to say, so I'm waiting for the questions afterwards.
Thank you very much, Christian. It is a good overview. I suppose it is a good overview about ATC. I have also to say that in the course of the preparation of this committee of expertise, we are considering to have another one more focusing on ATC than this one, which would enable to have a better understanding of the, I would say, the linkage between the different coding schemes or classification schemes.
I think that would be a very good idea, because this has to be very superficial here, but to go more into depth and see the links between the different things.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. So now, please keep your questions or write down your questions. See, one of our participants is very productive regarding questions. Very good. The next speaker is François-Xavier Legris from EDQM, and he's talking about Melclass. François.
Thank you, Christian. So I hope you can see and hear me. I can see the slides, so you can already move to the next one. So this is about, and you can get one more. Yeah. So I'm François-Xavier Legris. So I work at the EDQM Council of Europe. So I will briefly explain where we come from. So I will explain what is the Council of Europe and EDQM, and then I will describe what we do in the area of classification of medicines. And then a focus on the expert committee dealing with that. And last but not least, on the Melclass database. And of course, I will try to make the link between what we do and what has been said by the previous speakers, by Leonora and Christian, about ATC codes and medical product dictionaries. Of course, the purposes are different between the different systems or databases, but I mean, everything is linked together. And that's why we are here all together, to try to see where are the links and where are the opportunities for improving the coordination. So next slide. Yeah, the Council of Europe. So it's a public pan-European organization. So it's an intergovernmental organization. So we are all civil servants. So the organization exists since 1949, 47 member states working on the democracy, rule of law, and human rights, and health, public health being one of the basic human rights, of course. We work on that as well. And for that, we have a dedicated directorate within the Council of Europe, which is called the European Directorate for the Quality of Medicine and Healthcare. This is what we call a partial agreement. We have only, if I might say, 39 countries who have ratified a convention for the European Pharmacopoeia, so who then have to comply with the same standards. And this is why we are under this umbrella EDQM for the activities that we'll describe now. Next slide. So the classification of medicines, what are we talking about? We're talking about the whether the medicines are for available under prescription or not under prescription, to summarize very much the topic. So it's linked with what Leona was talking about in terms of prescribing medicines, and also with, of course, the therapeutic use of medicines as described by Christian at ATC level. So we focus for that area, or there is a need to assess whether medicines can be dispensed to the patients only under prescription, or if they can access to the medicines over the counter, so OTC without a prescription. And this is based on an assessment of the issues around patient safety, about it's linked with the accessibility of the patients to medicines, and it's often linked. It's not under our remits, but it's often linked with the reimbursement, of course. So the decision in Europe, even at EU level, it's not harmonized. It's really at the level of the national authorities. And of course, then you see the need to have good databases and good information sharing, because you don't have a centralized system where you can say for one drug, everywhere in Europe, it's the same prescription. So it's national decision. The condition of supply vary considerably, so you can even have, so it's prescription, not prescription. It could be even sold in supermarkets in some countries. This is called general sale, for instance. You have sales on the internet as well. And in the IDMP standard, in particular the MPID for the generic level, the medicinal product level, this is described as legal status of supply, prescription or not prescription. Next slide. So this is, as I said, an activity initiated by the Council of Europe. Then EU has included that part in a directive, currently in the Directive 201/83. So you have some articles from 70 to 75 in that directive about the classification of medicines. And at the level of the Council of Europe, which goes beyond EU for our 39 member states, we have a resolution which also gives a legal basis for the recommendation that we issue, and actually the Committee of Experts issue under our framework. So this Committee of Experts, CDPPH/PHO, is made up of experts from public health authorities, including our colleague Marcus Pongratz, who is in the panel, as a chair of this Committee of Experts. And this Committee of Experts works on collecting data about the actual classification, the actual and current classification at national level, to have the overview, and then, if possible, setting standards, like issuing recommendation about what could be a harmonized approach in terms of classification at European level as a recommendation, and also monitoring the situation from safety signals in pharmacovigilance. Next slide. So we'll deal as well with monitoring, cooperation, promotion. So we can skip this slide maybe in the interest of time. So the outcome of the work of this Committee of Experts, once they have collected data about the situation at national level, once they have assessed based on patient safety issue, based on pharmacovigilance, based on health literacy of populations, they can put the information into Melclass. So both the data collected about the national classification, which is, I remind you, something which is based on a national decision, not harmonized even at EU level, and then the information about recommendation. All of this is put in a database called Melclass, which we host, and you see the link at the bottom of the slide. It's a public database. There is, of course, a reserved access for the experts feeding the database with information from about national classification. So let's have a look at it on next slide. So the data source, again, we collect the data from the experts at national level, and it's rather manual process. I mean, we have electronic form that we use, but I mean, we still have to import the data in a rather cumbersome process. And we have also data that we can extract or trying to extract from other databases that exist. One is held by BfArM, the national agency in Germany for medicines. They are the ones collecting on behalf of other EU member states the data about what we call decentralized or mutual recognition procedures. So the medicines that are authorized not centrally at central level, but still with a good level of harmonization within member states. And of course, we have data from EMA, the European Medicine Agency in Amsterdam, about data for centrally authorized products. We collect also from our colleagues from the British Cooperative Center the information about ATC and the INN, which is normally the same because ATC is based on INNs. And then we put in Melclass the recommendation. Next slide. So it looks like we have on the left-hand side, so an important point is that we are at the 5th level of ATC. We enter the data at the level of the 5th level of ATC. We take one substance, and then we gather data at national level about the classification at this level of granularity for ATC. And of course, if you make the link with the presentation from Leonora, you will see that, of course, it's a quite generic level. We don't go into the details of every single product with different forms. We focus on one substance for one therapeutic use and one route of administration, oral route, for instance. And then, of course, we expect or we observe that the prescription status is the same. There is no difference between a film-coated tablet on a tablet of the same substance in terms of classification. I mean, the classification can be different at product level depending on the dose, and this is why we have as well in the database the daily dose as well, the exemptions. And whether there are some exemptions for making a medicine available without a prescription under a certain dose or available only under a prescription above a certain dose. So you have this information into Melclass, and again, this is information coming from the national databases. And you see on the bottom of the left-hand side, the national information, which is, again, different from one country to another. In that particular case, omeprazole, a very well-known anti-acidic substance drug. You have different prescription status. So you have one or two refers to whether or not the prescription can be renewed. And then you have prescription-only medicines and the exemptions, POM, and exemption is again depending on the doses. The issue is that we have right now 40,000 entries with recommendations for harmonization for 2,000 of them. We have a lot of visitors, regulators who visit the database to have the overview before assessing an application for a particular product, to have this kind of benchmark about what the other countries do for the same substance and the same therapeutic use. But then the shortcoming is that we have still a lot of missing data because it's a very heavy process to collect the data at national level and to import the data into Melclass. Next slide. It's another example for medicine. And again, this is to show the added value of the work done by the experts. I mean, for this substance, Donormil, it's an antihistaminic product, which is kind of, it's authorized for use, not for the initial intended use, which is antihistaminic for allergies. But I mean, you have a side effect of this product is to making you falling asleep. And so it's actually used as well under another indication for to help patients falling asleep. So for those who are having insomnia. So then you have again different approaches depending on the countries, because you have different applications made by manufacturers about pushing for more or less OTC use. And of course, we as regulators try to put as at first the protection of patients. And if there are risks perceived about giving a patient a medicine without a prescription, then we recommend. And the national regulators keep the medicine at prescription only. Next slide. I wanted just to finish on that. Of course, you can see from the database that it's collecting data. This is imported from national databases. We have links available in our database with the other databases, but it's a lot to do to extract the information from the national databases into Melclass. And of course, the dream for the future, if we had the resources, would be to have application programming interfaces between Melclass and other databases, or national databases, or EMA databases, or and what will be developed at IDMP level for data importation, for data extraction. And of course, that's why we're keen interacting with IDMP, with UNICOM, with ATC, with medical product dictionaries, to make sure that what we do at this level for regulators and for the regulatory part of this aspect is really used for what you build up at UNICOM and IDMP level for harmonizing the landscape, the IT landscape for managing drug information. So I stop here, and I hope it was not too long. I'm happy to answer, of course, any question.
Thank you very much, François-Xavier. For many of us, it is a discovery, and that is exactly the purpose. We decided, François-Xavier and myself, that we need to introduce people to Melclass, which is not so much known outside the very narrow, I would say, user domain. So we certainly will have other opportunities also to speak and work with Melclass in a short future, as you were saying, actually. The next speaker is Ursula John from Germany, and she's going to speak about the drug dictionary in Germany. Ursula, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christian. Next slide, please. Well, pharmacy.com is a website which is gathering information out of different national drug dictionaries, and I would like to start to make the bridge between IDMP and this pharmacy.com platform, and with MPDs in general, just to close the circle to Leonora's introducing MPD Z-index. So we have chosen, both of us, liraglutide as an example, and as we have heard from from François, INN is the base for the ATC code naming on the 5th level. So that's also the reason why I've chosen this example here. And what I've done, I've extracted out of pharmacy.com all the synonyms and abbreviations which are existing for liraglutide, just to show you how different and how not really clear such namings could be. The best one is here liraglutide as being the INN name in French and in English also. But you see here down here the chemical name, or also abstracts and codings we have, or even the Greek or Portuguese name. So it is very unclear if all these synonyms and names are really the same meaning, have the meaning or synonyms for liraglutide. And what you see here on the right-hand side is an extraction out of pharmacy.com, out of our IDMP term browser we are offering there. What we have done is taking all the different synonyms for liraglutide and matching them and mapping them with official naming sources, such as in this case you see here for EMA or for FDA. This is just to give you an overview how many different codings, even for those sources, FDA and EMA used in Europe and used in US, there might be different translations. So it is really IDMP and substance coding worldwide so that it can be identified is most important and crucial. Next slide, please. We see here that the ATC code already is very much clearer on it. So again, liraglutide, even though running the risk that you will dream from this substance this night, but this is the ATC code of liraglutide, and we see that with this code, it is very, very precise, but we see that for this substance there are 3 different ATC codes. So again, this is not a singular and not a unique form of identifying the substance, but it has the huge profit that ATC code is really used already worldwide. We have heard of it before, and especially used in medicinal product dictionaries. Next slide, please. So what I have done now is taking out from EMA the SMPC, that's what you see here on the left-hand side, from Victoza. Victoza is one liraglutide product, which has a centralized authorization procedure. So this is really the SMPC you can find at the EMA portal. And what I have done, I have qualified it, how this should be transformed or structured or encoded in IDMP terms or encoding. So you see here the name, Victoza 6 milligram solution for injection in pre-filled pen. So the first thing you would have here is that it is an injection in pre-filled pen, which would be, after IDMP definition, a solution for injection in pre-filled pen. This is existing directly and exactly 100% as it is put down in the SMPC. And you see here that this is the area of packaging from EMA and the combined term in the SPOR referentials. So this would be one area which will be very clearly encoded in IDMP. Then the next, the qualitative and quantitative composition. We have seen it out of the Z index, that liraglutide should have one identifier, and just now there is no SPOR substance coding. So I have put in here the code out of the EMA EVMPD substance code, which is this one you see here, and the domain where this is valid is substance from EMA. The next thing is that the liraglutide from FDA would be named in this form, liraglutide genetical recombination, and it would have the FDA SPL substance code you see here. So again, another code, another name. Most important to really clarify and have globally accessible one substance code, so that this is very clear that these 2 substance names are exactly the same. The pharmaceutical form out of this section 3 of the SMPC, in this case, is solution for injection. It is existing as term in the pharmaceutical dose form referential at EMA, and it is also in the correct domain pharmaceutical dose form, and this would be the IDMP code for this pharmaceutical form. Next slide, please. We are now jumping into, I think there is one slide back, please, Christian. Yes, we are now jumping into pharmacy.com, and the title of this presentation is the German IDMP Drug Dictionary. This is also correct because, of course, we have the German SMPC directory here in pharmacy.com as one database. What I have done, we have a Google-like search in pharmacy.com, which is called Iceberg Search, where you can enter all the search terms you want. You can enter either, as I've done here, an ATC code, an active ingredient name, a brand name, a manufacturing authorization holder, all these things you may enter here. And then you get an overview in which databases in pharmacy.com you will have results. We have in pharmacy.com 20 different medicinal product dictionaries out of different countries. So here, for example, for this ATC code, we have 5 results in the German SMPC drug dictionary, 1 in the Swiss, this is another German drug dictionary from Gelbe Liste called. We have 9 results in our internationally authorized medicinal products drug dictionary. In Switzerland, we have 2 results, and in Austria, for example, we have also 2 results. And what you see here on the right-hand side is directly I have clicked into the German SMPC drug dictionary and have chosen Victoza 6 milligram per milliliter. You remember this is also the example Leonora has used at the beginning. And you see here another form of how one national MPD may show this product and may define this product. You see here that in this case, in Germany, in the German SMPC drug dictionary, it is put in 3 milliliter with 18 milligram. Next slide, please. I have chosen out of this list in pharmacy.com the other German product dictionary, Gelbe Liste, you remember out of the result list. And here again, it is liraglutide as an active ingredient, 18 milligram with 3 milliliter injection solution. Next slide, please. And here we see the Swiss medicinal product drug dictionary. And here it is done in another form. Here we have 6 milligram per milliliter in a pen with triple dose, which means it is defined that you have 3 doses out of 1 pen, and it is put in 6 milligram as being the strength of the active ingredient. And perhaps you see here that they are using the Latin form, the Latin name of liraglutide, which is liraglutidum, and there is very more specified which how this liraglutide has been produced. So every medicinal product dictionary has different criteria how they show all these data, but all of them you see here the ATC code WHO is always the same. So the ATC code is, in terms of medicinal product dictionary, to define on a very high level medicinal products, a very, very crucial and important coding. Next slide, please. And again, this is the Austrian product, and here you have the 1 milliliter, the 6 milligram, and all these things are looking different, but they are describing exactly the same product we have here. Next slide, please. So our big picture, I could name this slide, I have a dream, or we have a dream in UNICOM. This dream is that we as medicinal product dictionary user provider, structured IDMP data on the left-hand side from the national competent authorities, so that they are delivering data in a unique form. This is what you see here in this blue form. So IDMP, even though these are perhaps from different countries, all the data are structured and in the same granularity as IDMP is defining it. And we as drug dictionary provider, we may use this form IDMP and add or even enrich our data. We have structured data into our MPD. This is a step which is not really easy, and we in UNICOM are exactly checking how this is best possible to do. But what would result out of it is, on the right-hand side, you see what Leonora has mentioned at the beginning, the e-dispensing, e-prescription, electronic medicinal record, so that not in every country, every product speaks the same language. So that a doctor in Greece or in Germany, they read this product and they know exactly what it is about and what is this product in its description in the natural language. Next slide, please. So what we have done in pharmacy.com, we have taken these 20 medicinal product drug dictionaries you have seen at the beginning, where all liraglutide is described in a national form. We have taken the IDMP structure you see here on the left-hand side with the different colors. So green for marketing authorization, or in purple for the clinical particulars, or the blue ones for the packaging. And we have taken all these disparate data out of the 20 drug dictionaries, and we have put them together in one IDMP drug dictionary pilot. It's a pilot because it's really an exercise we have started to do. We are working on just now, also in UNICOM, and with the help of the other medicinal product dictionary provider. But we have already tried to put them in one form. So if you would like to follow me and to put on your IDMP glass, you will see, hopefully, if technically we are able to see the video, you will see liraglutide Victoza, this product here as example, in this form, so that you may open just the different areas and see the medicinal product data, the marketing data, the pharmaceutical product data, the ingredients data, and also the packaging and also the clinical particulars. Next slide, please. Welcome to this short. Yeah, go ahead. Welcome.
It was a good start, but so hopefully it works now.
Welcome to this short introduction to pharmacy.com and the IDMP drug dictionary.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's when I cut my microphone, it seems to cut the sound as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's try again.
Welcome to this short introduction to pharmacy.com and the IDMP drug dictionary pilot. By entering the ATC code in pharmacy.com, you get a result list out of the different drug dictionaries we have in pharmacy.com in the portal. The German SMPC, another German MPD, Gelbe Liste, these are internationally authorized products. And our example we have chosen in our slides is out of the Austrian drug dictionary, Victoza, just that you see here how this is presented in the Austrian drug dictionary. We have then taken data out of a German medicinal product dictionary and have tried to put it in the IDMP structure and in the model with the colors you know, of course, from IDMP: green for marketing authorization, blue for packaged medicinal product, violet for clinical particulars, and the orange for pharmaceutical product. And that's what you see here in our liraglutide Victoza example we have chosen. So in yellow, medicinal product, the data, the MPID, the internal one of the German SMPC. You have the country of authorization, in this case it's Europe, and the ATC code with the different hierarchy levels. You see here we have the marketing information. This is the marketing authorization number. For example, the pharmaceutical product, the dose form out of the medicinal product dictionary, Fertigspritzen, and the item is 3 milliliter in 1 pen. With the ingredients and strength. First, the active ingredient is liraglutide, and just by clicking on the magnifying glass, you get the information about the different codings for liraglutide. Here, the different sources and preferred names, the synonyms and abbreviations we have seen, and here the different coding structure with the codes. For example, for EMA, the code would be in EVMPD code this one, or it is for WHO, this ATC code. Great, thanks for your time, and I'm happy to take your questions now. So I think yes, I think this was the last slide, and yeah, back to you, Christian.
Thank you very much. We had a double speech at the end, so with the video that was quite good. Voilà. It's time now to visit the questions and to give a couple of answers. I would say, unfortunately, we don't have so much time left, but we will try to sort that out. I'm going to read, oh my God, I'm going to read the questions from the most recent one. That question says, is there a concerted effort to get NCA to the level where they can utilize structured data, except for some of the European initiatives that have recently gained traction? It seems PMS will be available for the NCA in Europe to access during assessments, but whether they will really use structured data and keep it structured in their own database is not clear. I don't know who can answer that.
I can start, but just because it's mentioning NCAs, which stand for National Competent Authorities, and then I can give the floor to Marcus Pongratz, because he is actually an expert from an NCA. So indeed, the National Competent Authorities do assess medicines at national level, and then they have, every one of them have different databases. And in the pharmacy.com presentation, we've seen that there are different medical dictionaries, and because it's also because there are different national databases at a regulatory level about the authorized products. And plus you have EMA, of course, for the centrally authorized products. I won't get into the details. So my assessment is, I agree with the question that there would be, in an ideal world, yes, we would have all the same data in the same way, entered in the same way in the national registries at regulatory level. And then, of course, it will be easier for medical dictionaries. But maybe Marcus can answer about what he knows about the way the medicines are registered in national databases by the regulators.
Marcus?
Well, sorry.
You will.
Well, what François said is indeed a matter of fact. It's not very harmonized, this system all over the countries. And indeed, especially prescription status is predominantly done on the national level. which is harmonized by the community code, of course, but only on a very broad level, and it's not going into the details which countries have, and due to different aspects in the different countries, there are a broad variety of classification status related not just only to safety, but also to insurance aspects. That's quite a complex story.
Thank you. Another comments to this question? That seems not to be the case. I suggest we go to the next one. The example of Ursula Chorn was about a multi-dose vial, a very special case where one has to choose between the description of the single dose, 6 milligram per milliliter, and the pack vial size, 3 doses of 1 milliliter. On the one hand, or the weight over the volume, 18 milligram for 3 milliliter. Is this, I complete the question, is this a reason for, or an explanation for this discrepancy between the product descriptions?
I may take this question. Yes, it is, of course, because every national product dictionary provider has its own site and own rules on it. So, Leonora, please jump in, but you know that you will have fixed how to precisely define in that index these form of dosage and strengths. And as every national product dictionary provider has his own rules, it might be diverse. And this case is really, normally I've chosen a very simple example because the codings and so on are all existing and the granularity is fine for IDMP. And that there is a multi-dose in one pen is one form of complexity which must be also regulated and defined by IDMP, how to use and how to define then the strengths.
Yeah, thank you, but that was the completing question. IDMP plays a role certainly, but we need a pilot in this plane. Assuming IDMP is a plane, somebody has to make some decisions. Yeah. Leonora, do you want to complete?
Yeah, in that way, yes. Ursula is right that it is a matter of how your database is organized. In the Netherlands, we have on the level of the PHP the concentration strength, so therefore the 6 milligram per mil. And in a lower level, also the container type and the amount. So therefore, a pre-filled syringe of a pen in this case of 3 milliliters. But the rules in the Netherlands are also that you have for the parenteral, at least for the, yeah, this is not really unit dose, but for the unit dose also the total amount per container. So then we have 6 milligram per milliliters, 80 milligram per 3 milliliters. So it is depending on your own rules in your country how you populated this. And another thing is when it is one dose is 1 milliliter, how do you address what is one dose? That is another field, another type of information or characteristics that is not addressed when you only have the characteristics of the concentration strength and the amount per container type.
Thank you.
So maybe that's an additional thing that you have to add to the IDMP, because there are more type of products that has, one dosage is one, certain amount of milligrams from the product, which you don't see when you have just only these type of characteristics.
Yeah, thank you, Leonora. Actually, I have 2 watches and I'm in Switzerland and they are not exactly synchronized. One says we are over the time, the other one gives me 1 minute. So for that minute, I would first to mention that some questions have been raised about 1 hour ago in this call, but I understand that the questions have been answered in the presentation. So you have information, you received information about what is the content of medicinal product dictionary, what can be a content of that. Does it define rules for substitution? Depends on the country. Certainly not mandatory because there is no authority in a medicinal product dictionary. But they also include information about the reimbursement status and depending again on the country, etc. Drug-drug interactions and all these informations are included in. It's just to try to close the loop with this this question which was asked earlier. A bit unfortunately, we have to close this short Q&A. I hope you received a bunch of information during these 90 minutes. And I invite you, if you haven't done yet, to answer the small questionnaire which I opened a few minutes ago on the screen. As I said, the purpose is to understand if we meet your expectations. We have another committee of expertise next month, of course. You will receive information about it shortly. It will be highly interesting in a different angle of view, of course. And I'll give you rendezvous next month for another committee of expertise. Thank you to the speaker and the panelists for having joined us. And thank you for the participants to have visited us this afternoon. I wish you a good rest of the day and keep safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Et voilà, Robert, we are just the two of us. But you're on mute. I don't hear you and I don't see you.
I'm here, but you can.
I can stop.